Have you ever looked at the Three Mountains achievement and wondered how it was possible to conquer the world as the tiny island nation of Ryukyu? In this video, I will be covering an easy and painless way to obtain this achievement and conquer the world with vassal swarms. The basic concept of this strategy is to take Kyoto within the first 20 years of the game in order to vassalize all Japanese daimyos and unlock the ability to vassalize everyone in the world without diplomatic relation penalties. Given that EU4 is based around millions of unpredictable variables, anything can happen, and this guide details the ideal way in which to proceed. Your campaign may vary, so keep this in mind. Before starting, I would like to inform all of you that 2 DLCs are necessary for this strategy to work properly: Mandate of Heaven and Dharma. Mandate of Heaven is needed for Ming to protect you as a tributary state and for added daimyo mechanics, and Dharma is needed for you to be able to switch to the independent shogun government form. I would also recommend Wealth of Nations so that you can establish trade companies and avoid corruption creep across South and Southeast Asia. Let's go ahead and get started with our guide. The nation of Ryukyu starts in an isolated and impoverished position. A tributary of China, Ryukyu is protected from outside aggression. We will use this particular mechanic later to our advantage. Before unpausing the game, set your army maintenance to minimum and recruit 2 COG transport ships and 1 regiment of infantry. Equally, you should begin improving relations with Hosokawa's rivals immediately. Hosokawa is located in the southwest of Japan on their own island. Given that you can only increase relations by 100 with diplomats, you can also use money to boost relations by an additional 25 if necessary. The principal idea here is to get relations with Hosokawa's neighbors and rivals as high as possible in order to enforce peace on Hosokawa once they inevitably declare a war of conquest in the first 5 to 10 years. If they don't declare war on anyone in this time period, you should consider restarting your game. In this footage of my Ryukyu campaign, Hosokawa declared war within 4 years, and I was able to enforce peace on them. This brings us to step 2 of our guide, military intervention. The next part of the guide details what to do immediately after Hosokawa declares war on one of their neighbors. If you were lucky, Hosokawa declared war on one of their rivals or a daimyo that you have already begun increasing your relations with. If you were unlucky, Hosokawa declared war on a daimyo you have no relations with. In this case, you'll probably have to restart your game, unless if you can get your relations with that daimyo above 100 before Hosokawa annexes them. If Hosokawa declared war on a neighbor that you increased your relations with, it is time to begin the next phase in our plan of attack. Go ahead and enforce peace with this daimyo as fast as possible, using ducats to boost relations to above 100 if necessary. Next, go ahead and load up all 5 of your military regiments in your navy, and send your fleet off of the coast of Hosokawa's home island. What you do next depends on the progress of the war. If possible, try and land your armies near the daimyos that are allied on your side of the conflict. This war might be tricky, so do not be afraid to use loans or restart if needed. The primary goal in this war is to take Hosokawa's capital of Setsu. The other provinces are nice to take as well, assuming that you can get your war score high enough, but since the war leader is the daimyo you are protecting, the AI will often peace out before you can even reach 100% war score. As this is often the case, separate peace Hosokawa and take the province of Setsu in your peace deal as soon as you are able to do so. If you can take extra ducats, go ahead and take those as well. It's time for us to prepare for the next and most important step in our guide. After finishing your war with Hosokawa, your position in Japan has been established, and you are ready to start rustling the shogun's jimmies. This part of our guide will be focused on getting the shogun to declare war on us, so that our Ming tributary overlords will swoop in and invade Japan for us. Your goal in this section is to do everything in your ability to upset Ashikaga without, and this is very important, without insulting them. If you insult them, they will use the insult casus belli, which will prevent taking provinces and will prohibit you from becoming shogun after the war. With that out of the way, go ahead and move all of your troops to Ryukyu and out of the Japanese islands. Go ahead and also lower your army maintenance to the absolute minimum. You will want your navy in fighting condition, as Ashikaga will probably declare war on you soon, so do not mothball your navy and be sure to keep it at 100% maintenance. As you want Ashikaga to declare a war of conquest for Setsu, be absolutely sure again not to insult them, as stated earlier, which will render the strategy unusable. While waiting for Ashikaga to declare war on you, be sure not to spend monarch power on anything before the arrival of the Renaissance institution around the year 1450. This is because you will want to force the Renaissance institution to spawn in your country by developing your provinces, ideally Setsu, as it is a center of trade and has low terrain development costs. This will give you a tremendous early game technological advantage, as institutions do not transfer easily over sea lanes, allowing you to block out rivals and the Chinese from profiting off of your technological advancements. With that out of the way, go ahead and set the game to speed 5 and wait for Ashikaga to declare war on you. Assuming you followed the previous steps of the guide and have reduced your army maintenance without allying anyone, Ashikaga will declare war on you. When they do, hide your troops on your starting island and help Ming's navy out. The goal here is to establish naval dominance over Japan so that Ming can ferry their massive army onto the home islands and thus fight your war for you. This will be the hardest part of the war, and you might have to restart if Ming's navy is destroyed, but in the 4 games I test run, this only happened once. The majority of the time, and with your help, Ming and your navy will make short work of the Japanese, by wiping their ships individually and sticking close to reinforce Ming's fleet stacks. With the Japanese fleet largely destroyed, it is now time to set our war objectives, assuming that you have the Art of War DLC. If you don't have this DLC, do not worry. It is optional, but might make the war a bit faster. Go ahead and set Ashikaga's capital of Kyoto as Ming's war objective. Now we wait and bide our time. Once a large enough number of Ming soldiers land in Japan, we can reinforce them with our own cowardly troops that are still hiding out on our starting island. After some time, Ming should have dealt quite a blow to Ashikaga and any daimyo unlucky enough to be between their invasion fleets and the Japanese capital. All we need is the province of Kyoto in the peace deal, so you do not need to fully annex every daimyo. It should also be noted that Ming likes to separate peace early, so as soon as you and Ming take Kyoto, pause the game. Before negotiating peace with Ashikaga, it is imperative that you go into your government reform screen and switch to independent daimyo. This will increase your corruption by 10, which sucks, but it allows you to become shogun and automatically vassalizes every Japanese daimyo once you take Kyoto, so it is necessary and the most important step in our strategy. After changing your government form, send a diplomat to Ashikaga and demand Kyoto, plus as many ducats as possible. Congratulations, you are now Emperor of Japan as Ryukyu, and the hardest part of our guide is past us. Now that you are a shogun of Japan, you can vassalize and release an unlimited amount of vassals since daimyos do not take diplomatic slots. This, however, will not help the fact that you have a huge amount of war exhaustion and dozens of angry daimyos that have large amounts of liberty desire. To recover from the war, stay at peace for a while to lower your war exhaustion and use the diplomatic reputation daimyo ability to lower the liberty desire of your daimyos if necessary. It should be said that there are other optional daimyo abilities, including being able to increase your manpower and further lowering daimyo liberty desire, but be aware that each ability lowers your legitimacy by 20 and only lasts 10 years. If you have low manpower and lower your legitimacy too much, you might be vulnerable to the internal conflicts and civil war disaster, so be careful. It is best to time these abilities right before your ruler dies. I normally opt to select them once my ruler is above 40 years old, as the coronation of the next emperor will reset your legitimacy but maintain your daimyo ability effects. Since you are at peace for the time being, you might notice that daimyos can declare war on each other. If they do declare war on each other, it's actually a good thing. You can force daimyos who declare war to commit seppuku and give you extra monarch power each time they declare war on another country. This is essential for the early game as it will allow you to save up your monarch points to spend on development. Next, it is time to decide on what religion you want. Your starting religion of animism is trash, so you should convert as soon as possible. Shinto is good as it gives you increased army morale and events that eventually let you convert to Christianity, which will let you PU European countries. Alternatively, Confucianism is a good pick as you can harmonize all religions and don't have to deal with religious conversions in your border war empire. To switch to any of these religions, simply core and state a territory with the desired religion and force spawn religious zealots by sending a 0% maintenance missionary to said province. Eventually, the zealots will revolt, occupy and convert territories, and will either march to or teleport to your capital, where they will eventually convert your country to the desired religion. For the purposes of this guide, I have opted to convert to Shinto, as reducing isolation via event will let us convert to Christianity later on in our campaign, and let us potentially engage in PU magic to make conquering the world even easier. For the first 50 or so years of your game, your expansion will largely be limited by the amount of claims you can fabricate. In early game expansion, do not be afraid to use no CB wars to vassalize nations into daimyos into core and range territories. You will not be able to make many claims at the early game. To make things easier and to avoid no CB wars, you should rush the transfer subject splendor ability as fast as possible. This will allow you to make claims on neighboring claims. This allows you to chain claims around Manchuria, the Philippines, Korea, and even Southeast Asia. Our goal will be to conquer Ainu, the Philippines, Korea, and the majority of the Jurchen Manchurian tribes before 1500. When expanding, be sure to take centers of trade for yourself and give all the extra provinces to daimyo vassals, force vassalize new ones, or release the vassals diplomatically. Since all vassalized and released nations become daimyos and do not take diplomatic upkeep slots, go crazy, and try to take as many as possible. If you are unable to get claims on Korea via the Splinter ability, you can also integrate the daimyo bordering Korea so that you can fabricate claims on them. Once Korea is weakened by Jianzhou, you can declare war on them and take them as your vassal, assuming they have a small amount of territory. If you can't vassalize them in one war, it is advised to feed them territory to your daimyo vassals until they are small enough to release or to be forced vassalized. Your first idea group, once available, should always be exploration. This is because you can use colonies to increase coring distance, access new claims in overseas nations, and even explore Northwest Alaska before 1500 in order to spawn the colonialism institution. If you go this recommended route, be sure to take at least one Ainu territory to get coring range for the New World, if you want to spawn colonialism without forcing the institution. If you colonize the Kuril Islands, you can even fabricate on Kamchatkals, which once annexed will allow you to explore Northeast Pacific Ocean and unlock the new institution. You only need exploration ideas 1 through 3 if you have the Kamchatka Peninsula Chord, or a Colonial Distance Advisor if you have the Kuril Islands Chord. Once these prerequisites are met, go ahead and send your explorer on a mission to discover Northeast Pacific Ocean. They will discover Alaska, and you will be eligible to spawn the Colonialism Institution if you are lucky, as I was in this guide. Continue expanding, and try your best to take at least the Philippines before the next part of our guide. The next part of our guide will detail what our expansion should ideally be in the next 50 years of the campaign. If you are able to explore the New World before 1500 and spawn colonialism, you will have a very large advantage, as you can save your monarch power on ideas and technologies instead of development forcing the institution. Key areas to expand by 1550 should be Manchuria, to get Buryak gold into border Ming, conquering as much of Malacca and Maluka as possible for the amazing trade and ducat profit, and spreading westwards into Eastern Europe as much as possible in order to block off Muscovy from colonizing Siberia. In my particular campaign, I was able to reach all 3 of these goals, but if you feel overwhelmed, only the Spice Islands are truly necessary and should be prioritized before the other expansion routes. While expanding, continue taking centers of trade for yourself while giving excess territories to new daimyos. The swarm is growing. By this point, if your army is large enough that your vassals have low enough liberty desire, you can go ahead and also use the subject interaction transfer trade power to force your vassals into giving you 100% of their trade power. Assuming you have conquered all or at least the majority of Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Spice Islands, you can also set your capital or trade capital to Malacca and start steering your trade there for crazy profits. Be sure to assign light ships to the Moluccas and the Philippines to boost your earnings even further. If you expand aggressively enough, you should be present in Central Asia, Oceania, and parts of Eastern Europe and Western Siberia before 1550 rolls around. It is likely that by this point Ming will become distrustful of you and will drop you as a tributary. If this happens, be aware that you will become more vulnerable to coalitions formed against you, but your vassal swarm should hopefully discourage any nations from wanting to join it. With that out of the way, I will conclude the video with recommendations on how to proceed from here, in order to set yourself up for conquering the world. By this point in your campaign, you will most likely have anywhere between 30 to 80 vassal daimyos in the majority of Oceania and Southeast, Northeast, and Central Asia under your indirect control. Given that China will likely have dropped your tributary status by now, it is wise to begin planning on how to deal with them. If you core a province that borders China and is connected via subject states to your capital, you can easily destroy Ming by having their mandate sharply dropped to 0. Given that we have been expanding into their tributary subject states, they will at this point have very few tributaries loyal to them, with the vast majority of their former tributaries now being our loyal daimyo vassals. If you haven't done so already, I also highly recommend for you to block off Russia from colonizing Siberia. In my campaign, I was able to do this by expanding rapidly across northern and central Asia, vassalizing Sibir, and colonizing the provinces immediately to the east of the Urals. If done correctly, Muscovy will be locked in Europe and will be much easier to destroy and vassalize later on in your campaign. Moving forward, you should continue to expand into India, Eastern Europe, and the Americas. Remember that you can vassalize literally every OPM in North and South America, as well as any other nation small enough to do so in one war. If you can't vassalize a country in one war, you can always annex portions of their territory, which you can then use to release a suitable vassal. Once you have hundreds of vassals, your game might slow down a bit, but the vassal swarm is more than worth it. Time to sit back, declare war, and relax as your daimyos carve out the world for you. Enjoy the easiest third mountains possible using this strategy, and please let me know if this guide has helped you. That concludes our video guide for Conquering the World as Ryukyu. If you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate a like or a comment. These will really help the channel grow. Stay tuned for more content coming next week. I'm working on getting the Exodus mods up on the Steam Workshop. There's a problem preventing me from updating and uploading them with the 1.28 patch. As soon as they are up on the Steam Workshop, the Exodus time-lapse videos will be back. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.